Yeah. Welcome, Madame. Thank you so much. You may be seated. Good afternoon. Salam alaikum. Bonjour. Bon dia. Buenos dias. Habari. Welcome, and as we say in Ghana, Akwaba, to our high-level dialogue on amplifying the voices of women, youth, and children in climate action. We are so pleased you could join us today. And we're at COP28. And one of the calls to action at this COP has been, we don't have time. We don't have time for excuses. It is time to accelerate our action, to amplify, and also to move together for a greener future. And Africa has spoken. We know from the climate summit that we are saying we didn't create the problem, but we have the innovative solutions and the minerals to power a greener future. So invest in Africa, unlock our access to financing in order to create the future we all want. It's a partnership that benefits all of us. It's not charity. And yesterday, we had the opportunity to hear from the youth. And we had a powerful discussion at the Youth Dialogue on how to amplify voices. And they told us that we want real representation. Yes, we're in the room, but we want a seat at the table. We want our voice to be heard. And we want our priorities to become the priorities for action. And most importantly, they told us that we want to join our innovation and entrepreneurship with your expertise and experience so that we'll be able to have an impact on the ground. So our high-level dialogue today, it's not about talk, it's about action. It's about a commitment to real action at speed, scale, and impact on how we can have a just energy transition that amplifies the voices of women, youth, and children in climate action. In order to open our discussion today, I'm going to invite a personality that we all know. She's a founder and CEO of Samira Empowerment and Humanitarian Projects, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on health, education, gender parity, women's empowerment, and entrepreneurial development. And she's also a global ambassador for the Clean Cooking Alliance, a member of the Africa-Europe Foundation for Women Leaders, and a global champion for health and energy. We know her as a force behind the Africa Women and Children Summit that seeks to inspire, advocate, and promote, as well as celebrate women and children's rights through inclusive dialogue and action for a better world. We know, Madame, that you're committed to promoting the voices of women and children in Africa's development while safeguarding their rights. So I'd like you to join me in welcoming Her Excellency, Hajia Mrs. Samira Bawumia, to give us her key interventions and opening statement. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Angela. Thank you all for joining us today. It's a real honor for me to welcome you all to this high-level dialogue of the Africa Women and Children's Conference, AFRIWOCC, as part of this 28th Conference of Parties. Our theme, Amplifying the Voices of Women and Children in Climate Action, is not only pivotal to our discussions today, but also deeply resonates with the overarching goals of COP28. This high-level dialogue is structured around AFRIWOCC's communique action, advocating for the comprehensive inclusion of African women and children in the global climate action framework. Our objectives here are to engage global leaders, implementing partners, and all our stakeholders in a roadmap towards achieving these goals, with a particular emphasis on capitalizing on existing opportunities and fostering scalable, locally led interventions to empower women and elevate the voices of children in climate action. AFRIWOCC serves as a nuanced platform to analyze the impacts of climate change on women and children in Africa. Our focus extends to assessing the relevant mitigation and adaptation policies and projects, harnessing indigenous knowledge, and exploring innovative ideas. We also aim to coordinate a network of organizations already dedicated to this cause of women and children in the climate change economy across Africa. I'm honored, ladies and gentlemen, that today our dialogue has brought together distinguished participants, honorable ministers, deputy ministers, heads of institutions and organizations, all of you here, policymakers, academia, thought leaders, climate activists, and representatives of women and children's groups, among others. Africa's unique position, a continent of immense natural resources and diversity, is underscored at this crossroads where climate change presents not only an environmental but economic challenge and also exacerbates existing social inequalities. Here at COP28, we acknowledge that women and children in Africa are uniquely affected, emerging as both vulnerable groups but also very powerful agents of change. The urgency for action is underscored by the ongoing transformation of our lands, our livelihoods, and the socioeconomic framework of our societies due to climate change. This dialogue signifies a critical turning point, ladies and gentlemen. It's an opportunity for us to listen, to learn, and to collaborate. Our collective aim is to enhance the often overlooked perspectives of African women and children, acknowledging their distinct experiences and potential contributions in guiding Africa towards a sustainable and resilient future. As we engage in today's discussions, let us be inspired by the principles of inclusivity, innovation, intergenerational equity, urgency, and the unity of purpose. Our mission aligns perfectly with COP28's primary focus, that is implementing the Paris Climate Conference climate change agreements and intensifying ambition and action. The broader context of COP28 serves as a backdrop for our dialogue. It reminds us that our efforts are part of a larger global movement. Our discussions here today will directly contribute to the larger conversations happening throughout the COP28, that is influencing policies and strategies that will shape our collective responses to the climate crisis. This is a unique opportunity to build partnerships and exchange best practices and formulate actionable recommendations that empower women and children to be leaders, change makers, and ambassadors for climate resilience. I'm therefore confident that the discussions ahead will be characterized by a strong commitment to action. Let us emerge from these dialogues with a revised sense of purpose and a comprehensive strategy that places the voices of women and children at the forefront of the climate discourse and policy formulation as well as implementation. Consequently, I'm excited to announce the establishment of the Africa Women and Children Fund. This fund represents a concrete step towards addressing the specific challenges that climate change poses to women and children in Africa. It will focus on enabling and supporting climate change mitigation and adaptation strategies, as well as the implementation of sustainable development goals that are central to the empowerment and protection of women and children. The Africa Women and Children Fund will operate as a dynamic and responsive instrument, channeling resources and support and interventions where they are most needed. It will foster a local and scalable intervention that promotes innovative solutions and ensure that the voices and experiences of Africa women and children are not just heard, but are influential in shaping the climate policies and actions. Most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, it will positively impact lives and be a catalyst for the development and resilience of our continent and its peoples. Once again, let me extend my warmest welcome for each and every one of you, especially my distinguished panelists and speakers. Your presence here is a testament to your dedication to a just and sustainable future for Africa and for our future generations. Together, we will ensure that this is a movement that empowers the previously unheard voices, unlocking the vast potential of Africa women and children in climate action. I thank you all.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. And there, in a nutshell, we have AFRIWOCC, not just a talk shop, but an engine for action. And congratulations on the launch of this fund. Now, I would like to invite a sister you know her now as the AU, African Union Commissioner for Health, Humanitarian and Social Development. But I also know her from a previous life as the Commissioner for Political Affairs and Advancing Governance, Democracy, and Human Rights and Stability in Africa. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Angela Lusigi. I'm the resident representative for UNDP in Ghana. And in my previous life, I worked very closely with Her Excellency Ambassador Minata Samata Sesuma to develop a program for women in governance and political participation. So this tells you that Her Excellency is committed to good governance, peace and security, the protection of human rights and the rule of law, but she's also a strong supporter of women and youth participation in governance. And today, I'm sure she's going to tell us what the African Union is doing and how we can amplify the voices of women and youth in climate action. So welcome, Your Excellency Minata.
Thank you so much, Angela, for your warm welcome. And thank you for the job we did together. We were sure that women, we are going in politics, we are not succeeding. Why? And we could develop many things for women and girls, participation in politics and other things. Thank you so much for that one. I didn't know that you are in Ghana now. Thank you to you. Your Excellency, Madam Samira Baumia, Second Lady of the Republic of Ghana, thank you so much for inviting me for this important event. Honorable ministers and distinguished personality present here this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In my country, we say all protocol duly observed. Today, ladies and gentlemen, dialogue within the context of COP28 presents an opportune moment to address the intersectionality of gender, climate action, and the imperative need to safeguard the rights of women and children, and especially the girl child. Our commitment, ladies and gentlemen, as African Union to protect the girl child against all forms of gender-based violence, including harmful practices, is deeply embedded in the fundamental frameworks such as Africa Agenda 2063. We have Maputo Protocol and the Charter on Rights and Welfare of the Children. These frameworks are emblematic of our collective pledge to uphold the dignity and the rights of every girl in Africa. Yet, as we navigate this commitment, we cannot ignore the disturbing statistics that illustrate the persistent challenges faced by our girls in Africa. In Africa, approximately 27% of our girls are still subject of to female genital mutilation is not normal. And this practice is bad. And with bad consequences on girl physical and psychological well-being. This cannot continue. Furthermore, child marriage continue to plague our societies with nearly 37% of girls being married before the age of 18 years, truncating their educational process and perpetuating a cycle of vulnerability. However, things are not too bad. We have challenges, but we have also good examples in Africa, in our member states. My department has engaged with on-country monitoring visit in 2022 and 2023. We were fortunate to learn of the good practices and strong national effort being made to empower girls and women in Africa. We visited 15 countries, but what can we do is to continue in 2024 to engage all African member states in order to document countries' level intervention to protect and to promote the rights and well-being of our girls and women in Africa. Madam Second Lady, thank you so much for your leadership, for what you are doing, and I'm happy to see the fund being to be created. You have our support on it. And Ghana is a beacon of progress in this matter. Thank you so much, because I hear about one good example is the Girl in Green initiative in your country, Madam Second Lady, where young girls actively develop innovative and sustainable solutions to address climate challenges. This initiative is a testament to the transformative power of empowering girls to be agents of change in climate discourse. It should inspire all of us in Africa to have such programs across our member states. In this spirit, today's conference theme, Amplifying the Voice of Women and Children in Climate Action, is very important. Let us draw inspiration from this real life example. Our collective agenda, you mentioned it, we need to be together to have strategic intervention which will be important for our girls and women in Africa. As we deliberate, let our discussion culminate in actionable recommendation. Let us advocate for policies prioritizing gender inclusivity, which is very important within climate adaptation and mitigation strategies. I would like, ladies and gentlemen, to express my sincere gratitude to you, Madam Second Lady of Ghana, my sister. Your engagement and your commitment to have this meeting and what you are doing for your country and for Africa is very important. Your commitment and commendable initiative serve as a beacon of leadership in Africa. This is urging us to collectively emulate and amplify such effort. We are with you, Madam Second Lady. Before finishing, I would like to sincerely thank ADB and bilateral and multilateral partners for engagement, for support given to African Union and especially my department. Together, we are strong. Together, we can change the narrative in Africa, and I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency. Indeed, together we are strong. And thank you for the support from the African Union and also for mentioning the importance of partnerships and the Pan-African vision that is happening in Ghana. Now we will move to another set of remarks. And this one is going to be very interesting because it's about Ghana's energy transition and action plan. We know Ghana is ambitious and committed to clean cooking transformation agenda. And we're looking forward to hearing from our Honorable Minister, Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh, the Minister of Energy from Ghana, And there's one thing that you don't know about this minister, which I have to recognize. He was recognized as the best minister in 2017 and 2019, and the recipient of the 2024 Harvard Ministerial Achievement Award. So we're going to hear from a transformational minister, and he'll tell us how we're amplifying the voices of women and youth in this transformation agenda.
Thank you. I was just telling the second lady that I've been upended in the sense that I was never told to come and speak about clean cooking. Actually, to attempt to address this audience with clean cooking would be to pigeonhole the effect of women and children in the climate change agenda that we have. Madam Second Lady, thank you for inviting us here. Distinguished invited guests, colleague ministers, deputy ministers, chief executive of various agencies here, invited guests, friends from the media. I'm delighted to address this gathering, high-level delegates amplifying the voices of women and children in climate action. In fact, I want to state, before I even start, that without empowering women and children in our climate change agenda, we are bound to fail. There are more women than men in the world, and there are more children than adults in the world. And to combine both forces and ignore them or sidestep or not include them in a climate change means that we are not getting anywhere. In fact, we are not getting anywhere because we haven't included women as much as we should have done so far. Since the time of creation, for those who believe creation, mothers have been the people who look after the future generation. And it is so essential that I keep telling people that education starts at home. If there is no mother, you will definitely have a wayward child. If you get a child in the world without a mother, it's just miraculous for the child to be up and running. He may even have to be given to a foster parent or somebody to still look after. So mothers are vital, and women are vital to the socioeconomic transformation of every society in life. I don't believe that women are not empowered much, because where I come from, most important decisions are left for women to decide for the whole society. Even though becoming mothers, marrying, sometimes it suppresses our women folk, because when they go to the farms, the markets, they still to do all the hard work. But really, also important decisions that are being made in the society, women are the most important people we go and consult. So we do recognize the effect of women. So here, we've been fighting this climate change agenda since 2015 in Paris. We set ourselves a target of not more than 1.5. But in Africa, cooking fuels is our problem. Over 900 million people in Africa are not using good fuels for cooking. So let us look at that problem. In my previous, not life, in my early life as a minister, I was the Minister of Education. And I visited one of the secondary schools. And in Ghana, secondary schools are merely boarding institutions. And I parked my car at the pantry, the dining hall section. So I was going to enter the school through the pantry. And I couldn't walk through the pantry because they were cooking with wood fuel. And most of the young women who were cooking had children on their back. For me, an asthmatic, I couldn't actually just pass through the place. So it dawned on me that, and I spoke to the second lady when I happened to come to energy, that we have to do something about cooking fuels in Africa, especially in Ghana. Because those who are bearing the brunt probably don't have the voice as much as some of us as politicians. And these are the women and the children. And it has serious implications on their health. For me as a doctor, I see everything about it, that if we don't tackle bad cooking fuels, we will never be able to tackle the climate change agenda. So in Ghana, we have the cylinder recirculation model trying to promote LPG cooking and electricity cooking in Ghana. Already, about 36% of our country folk are exposed to cooking with improved cooking stoves and LPG. and only about 1% electricity. It's so vital and fundamental. The amount of time women folk go out looking for wood for cooking with our children on their back. It takes time from everything. We just come from the farms and come and enjoy the food. But one big issue about energy transition for my ministry dealing with it is improved cook stoves. We are fortunately, the second lady is championing with the Cooking Alliance and have 2 international conferences in Ghana so far. And we think that we need more investment. And some countries are supporting us very much. South Korea, Saudi Arabia is in tow, and 2 other big international bodies want to help us to promote and improve cooking stoves to most of our women folk to ensure that cooking is done not to the detriment of our women folk, but to enhance the eating pleasure of all the family. In Ghana, like I said, we are empowering, and women are empowered to exploit their God-given potential. When you have 50% of the population, either women or children, you cannot develop as a country without empowering women. And so far, we are not doing badly. We've had women, apart from the presidency and the vice president, very soon we will get there. We've had women enjoying or occupying most of the important positions in the country. Head of some of the security agencies, head of the judiciary. On 2 or 3 occasions, our chief justices have been women. And it has had a profound effect, even in the recruitment of well-qualified people in some of these institutions. And in fact, it's only when you have a woman as a leader that you begin to see the benefits of our women folk in our society. Your Excellency, like I said, the Ministry of Energy remains committed in working with you to ensure that cooking is not a problem. It's something that we can, even as guys or boys, we can also enjoy cooking. So far, we don't do it because of the mere fact that we take so much time in preparing food. And when you are in Ghana, you prepare meals every day. It's not that you can have fridges. Yesterday, I was at the Global Cooling Coalition. We don't have fridges to preserve. So women have to travel to the market every day and come back, go and look for fuel wood to come and cook, which is not good for us. So we're going to work together to ensure that cooking is a pleasurable duty for women, not a hardship for us to endure. We believe that every country must adopt things to make the work of women and children, especially the climate change agenda. The second big thing I want to say that they say charity begins at home. If our women folk understand the whole climate crisis, definitely they will start teaching their children. When we were kids, we had in school environmental practices, how to live safe and clean environment. We believe that we have to even step up it higher so that the children at school, we include it in the curriculum. When I was the Minister of Education, we started doing the curriculum reform. Some of these things were part of the new curriculum agenda that we are. Because when you teach the child the way it should grow, the Bible says the child will never depart from that way. If we start teaching children the effect of climate change agenda that is happening, the children will grow up to understand that we personally also should be involved in climate change agenda. It doesn't pay to put your air conditioner at 16 when 25 is good enough. It doesn't pay to put the lights on when you are not there. You have to have a system of behavior such that once you are getting in the room, you put off the lights off. You put off the lights off. And there's the children who can even force parents, if we include it in the curriculum, to make sure that we achieve this, what we want to do with this climate agenda. We would like to say that thank you for inviting us. And we in the ministry and in Ghana, the men folk, we promise to support you to make sure that the whole women and children AFRIWOCC agenda is well placed in Ghana and implemented. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, also for reminding us that when we're talking about clean cooking, we're not just talking about cooking in the home, we're also talking about institutions and transforming that space. And also thank you for reminding us that men can also cook and be part of the transformation agenda. Thank you so much. And with that, it leads us very nicely into our first panel discussion. So I'm going to invite the panelists to take the stage. We have Jane Burston, the Chief Executive Officer and founder of the Clean Air Fund. And we also have with us Dimfa van der Lin, the Chief Executive Officer of Clean Cooking Alliance. And finally, we have Sheila Oparaocha, who's the Director, Energia International Network on Gender and Sustainable Energy. So now I'm going to change my hat and become a moderator. So welcome to the panel, and thank you for making time to join us today. I'm going to begin with you, Jane. We know that you are the Chief Executive Officer and founder of the Clean Air Fund, and you've also previously been the Head of Climate and Energy Science for the UK government, where you are responsible for the UK greenhouse gas inventory. And we really want to hear from you. In your view, what are the challenges, but most importantly, what are the opportunities in linking air quality and climate policies to better protect vulnerable populations, especially women and children?
Thank you so much. And thank you for the invitation to be here. So there are huge benefits to tackling air pollution and climate change together, as Minister Prempeh very clearly laid out, because if you bring down air pollution, it has massive benefits for health, and it tends to come from the same places as greenhouse gases, which are bad for climate change. So 2/3 of outdoor air pollution is from burning fossil fuels. I don't know, probably many people in this room know about why children are much more vulnerable to air pollution. It's because they're both more exposed and they're more physiologically vulnerable, as we've already heard. They're more exposed because pollution levels are higher, much closer to the ground where children are playing, because particles are heavy. So there's more of them nearer the ground. And children spend time playing in a dusty playground or near to cook stoves inside the home. They're also more physiologically vulnerable because they're growing. And so it really affects developing lungs and the developing brain, and it can affect the quality of life outcomes for the rest of their lives. So the opportunity is to tackle climate change and air pollution at the same time, especially in this era of very limited funding. The sorts of things that we've seen governments do is to put health outcomes in their NDCs. And one particular area that we're seeing more and more countries look at is black carbon emissions reductions. It's soot. And it's very interesting that this soot is warming for the climate, it's black. So once it's in the atmosphere, it's absorbing the heat. But also, it affects local rainfall patterns. So when it's in the air, it's causing clouds to do something different, and it's affecting rainfall in West Africa quite significantly. So it's something, black carbon in particular, which comes from cooking, but also transport, waste burning, is an area that can support resilience as well as health.
Okay, thank you. Just a quick follow-on. What can grassroots women-led organizations, what role can they play in advancing this clean air agenda?
Well, again, as we've heard a number of times already this afternoon, women need to be engaged in the topic and are often the best champions, along with children, actually, for action. We've worked with an organization called Urban Better, which is led by a female professor, Dr. Tolu Oni, who mobilizes youth. She's worked in Accra, in Lagos, in Cape Town, and she's mobilizing youth to jog or cycle around their city, measuring air pollution as they go, and also taking photos of the sources of pollution so that they can then engage the government to address them, or taking photos of things that are affecting health in other ways, so open drains or dangerous junctions. So she's leading this organization, and many of the youth who are getting involved are young women, really advocating for change. Another thing that we've seen is women empowering themselves to advocate for their sector with the government. So we work in Delhi, in India, where women construction workers are very exposed to pollution. Construction is the second biggest sector in India, but for employment. and about 40% of the workforce is women. And they're exposed a lot to the construction dust, about 6 times more than an office worker. And once they learn about the impacts of air pollution on their health, they've been able to advocate with the government to both ask for subsidies when the construction sites get closed. For example, when the air pollution is high, the government has to close the construction sites. They've got some social security when that happens, but also to get healthcare facilities brought to the construction site because they don't have time to visit the doctors.
Thank you so much for that information on how you can activate young people and children to be able to not only collect data, but really shine a light on the scale of the problem and the solutions. And I can see EPA is in the house and taking very good notes. So we'll leave that to you. I'd like to come to Dimfna Vanderlands. Thank you for joining us. We know you have many years of experience in managing and leading global development, energy, and climate initiatives for the nonprofit as well as the private sector. And I think this is really important for our dialogue today. Can you tell us what innovative approaches can be implemented to make clean cooking technologies more accessible and affordable? What real action can we take on the ground? Thank you.
Thank you. No, it's wonderful to be here. And first of all, I just want to acknowledge the second lady, and her inspiring leadership in this area continues to inspire me to do my work every day. She always says that I'm her boss, but I think really she's my boss. So it's just wonderful to be with everybody today. I think to come to your question, as in what kind of innovations do we see to actually, and this is fundamental, I think, address the issue of lack of access to clean cooking with the skill and urgency that's required. We no longer have time for pilot projects. We are moving beyond pilot projects. And I think one of the things we're seeing this year at COP, which has been wonderful, is a real commitment from high political level leaders, including Ghana, Sierra Leone, Kenya, and other countries, to really elevate the issue of clean cooking to its rightful place, which is in the office of the government or the president, for example. But more importantly, all of these commitments are now finally coming with financial commitments from institutions that matter. And so yesterday we heard the Africa Development Bank, Dr. Adesina, announced that they are going to commit $2 billion to clean cooking in Africa to, for once and all, address this issue with the urgency and skill that's required. And so for us, it's really inspiring to see these commitments and to hear this political engagement, which is wonderful, but means nothing if it's not implemented. So you need the will, you need the money, then you need the implementation. For clean cooking, as an organization, we're really making sure that there is a thriving industry to actually provide the supply for the demand that we already know exists. We know people want to live a healthy, comfortable life. So we're working with these companies to make sure that they have the appropriate solutions that are affordable, available, and accessible to these communities so that they have choices to make. In essence, what we're talking about is what you and I do. We go to a store and we buy an appliance. We make a decision based on different choices that are out there. And so we want to make sure that as we transition the continent of Africa to clean cooking, it is a diverse product portfolio that we're providing for the communities and the women that we're serving. And so once they have these choices and they know what the impacts are of those, there's like ratings that they can see. We're moving this whole issue to a much more sustainable approach where businesses are actually providing the products that consumers, women, want.
Thank you so much. And that just leads us into that second question about what are the key partnerships that we need to pursue and the collaboration that we need to have to advance the goals of the Clean Cooking Alliance?
Yeah, I think outside of partnerships with like the private sector and the business communities, the partnerships we already have at the highest political level and with some of the finance institutions is really partnerships. And Jeline, who works with me and is sitting here, is really focused on this area. Move the conversation about access to clean cooking to adjacent ecosystems. How is it that the food system community is not talking about clean cooking? Producing food means nothing unless you have the heat to move the molecules and make it nutritious. And so Jeline and her team are working really hard to make sure that we're embedding conversations around clean cooking in these adjacent ecosystems, like the food systems, where it's really, really important. And those partnerships, I think, are going to be crucial. The other one that I just want to mention, because it comes back to the fact that Africa has so many resources and is such a rich country or continent. Yes, continent. For example, like embedding clean cooking in conversations around nature-based solutions. Like you cannot move clean cooking out of a conversation around how do we protect our forests? How do we protect our wildlife? How do we protect our biodiversity if we're not providing access to clean cooking for the communities that live around these parts of the country? So it's bringing this conversation to these adjacent ecosystems and creating strong partnerships to execute it, because my organization can't do it all. We have to work through partners.
Thank you so much for highlighting that connection to the really important discussion around food systems that started at this COP, and we hope will continue. And that brings us nicely, you also mentioned something about policy. That brings us nicely to you, Sheila. We know that you have many years of experience working on intersectionality of gender equality, women empowerment, and energy access. And we also know that you were the recipient of a Carnot Prize for distinguished contributions to energy policy. So this question is really to you. Can you provide examples of successful initiatives that have empowered women, both as consumers and providers of sustainable energy solutions?
Thank you very much. Happy to do so, but first to thank you for inviting me to be on this distinguished panel. And I just want to join others in recognizing the leadership role that Her Excellency, the Second Lady, is playing to promote the role of gender equality, of women's leadership and empowerment and girls' empowerment in the sector, and even going beyond to invite her peers to join. We've seen her being in the room and inviting them, so we're very pleased to see that. And she's not just the global ambassador for CCA, she's really the global ambassador for all of us. So in terms of examples, yes, I'm going to use an example of one that my organization, Energia, is engaged in, but we're not doing it ourselves. I'd like to, it's an approach that's used by also another organization known as Solar Sister and Frontier Markets. And the reason that I have I've focused on these organizations is one is an NGO, the other two are social enterprises, is because they're women-led. But they're women-led and are really dedicated to gender transformation and women's empowerment. And we have been, and collectively have been working with a cohort of 42,000 women entrepreneurs, mostly in micro and small businesses, who have delivered energy services to 21 consumers. So how has this been done? We've used really, well, of course it's context specific. It's in India, it's in Tanzania, in Kenya, in Senegal, and in Nepal. But cutting across are probably 5 approaches that we've used. The first one is to recognize that women don't operate in a vacuum in their business. So really building buy-in, creating buy-in, creating ownership, and breaking down resistance is really critical from the beginning. So it's trying to ensure inclusiveness and women's engagement. So that's by engaging with families to begin with, engaging with local community leaders, engaging with local authorities to really position women's economic empowerment as contributing to family welfare, to family economic development, but also to local economies as well. So it's first really having that conversation. That's the first entry point. The second one is really empowering women, them building on their agency, and agency as business owners, as business leaders. So that really involves capacitating them with good business skills, how you invest in yourself. You know, you have to have a salary, you have to invest in your business, you have to do proper bookkeeping, etc. So that's important, and it comes with a lot of training and mentorship, because you need to meet women within their within where you find them. 5-day training courses, coming to the COP for 2 weeks. There's no women business. Well, some of us can do it, but a lot cannot. So you have to really meet them where they are. And what we're beginning to find is that as women are taking over these businesses, it's really inclusive. So we've had instances in Nepal where we've had men folks that usually migrate to different regions who have decided to stay because businesses are running well. So when you take an inclusive approach, like I said, you start with trying to break barriers, you bring in the rest of the family, you bring others. Others, I know that I'm taking too much time, so I need to continue, is building markets. So creating markets that work for women and strengthening women's position in the market. Where is their value addition? So creating those linkages and of course linking very importantly to finance. We also look at social protection. Women businesses are vulnerable, so insurance is really important. And lastly is really building on the collective agency of women. One of the secrets of women is that we know how to work as groups, to organize, to raise money, but also to engage, to negotiate and engage as a group. And we've worked also with mixed groups. This works less successfully with men somehow, but it works much better with women. So building on that collective agency. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sheila, and thank you for bringing out that powerful point about entrepreneurship and this as a business that engages women and transforms lives. Before we go into the last round, if there are 1 or 2 comments from the floor, we're happy to take a few, 1 or 2 from the floor. I have one person here, and fortunately we don't have a roving mic, so no? Just come to the, okay. I don't see any other comment from the floor. So because we have another panel coming up, I want to give 1 minute to each of our panelists to tell us what is a takeaway that you would like our audience to take in how they can engage women and youth in ensuring that we advance a gender equal agenda.
Well, my takeaway is for those in the room who have funding. I think something that's really shocked me in the last year is a study that we did on the state of global air quality funding. And we found that only 1% of international development aid goes to supporting air quality projects. And 2% of international public climate finance. Guess what percentage of that goes to Africa? Have a guess. 5% only, 86% in Asia. So we need to increase the amount of funding, but we also need to make it more equitably distributed. And so for people with projects that support women and girls, I would say come forward with the demand. One of the things that we hear from the development banks and others is, well, there's no demand. And we're saying that's because there's no money. So increase the money, but also if you've got project ideas, bring them forward.
Thank you so much, Jane. Over to you, Dimpna.
Thank you. I was almost going to guess a lower number, but it's very sad statistic. I think one takeaway for everybody is just the critical role that women play specifically in the clean cooking transition, because ultimately they are the users. They know what they need. The solutions are out there. We just have to respect that and make sure that they are able to live healthy, prosperous lives.
Thank you so much, Dimpna. And finally for you, Sheila.
So my takeaway is actually a call to women themselves. Because I think it's not about empowering women, it's really recognizing that we as women have our power. We've heard that we're living longer, that we're the majority in the world. This is the time when you have more women entrepreneurs. In fact, Africa is leading. You've got more women who are owning assets, owning money. And we've got political leaders. So if this is not the time when women themselves do not invest in women, vote for women, speak for women, then I think there's no better time than now for us to make a change. So I think let's stop waiting for people to empower us. Let's grab our own power and do it ourselves. And they will come along.
Thank you so much, Sheila, for ending this panel on such a powerful note. I'm not going to summarize. I'm just going to leave you with those takeaways. Women, we have our power. We know the solutions, and we need equitable access to the funding when it comes. Thank you so much to our panelists. Please give them a round of applause.
Oh, thank you so much.
Your Excellency. Yes. So thank you so much to our excellent panel. And now we're ready for our second panel, which will be moderated by Ghislaine. So I'd like to invite Ghislaine to come on stage, and I'll also invite the panelists to come. Do you want to invite the panelists? Okay.
Thank you, Angela, and thank you, Your Excellency, as always. I am Jillian Belopolsky, Chief of Staff and External Affairs at the Clean Cooking Alliance, and I have the privilege of moderating our second discussion on women and children at the center of a just energy transition. It is my honor to invite Her Excellency Leila Camara, Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development of Mauritania, to join us, along with Ms. Anita Otubu, Senior Director of the Universal Energy Facility at Sustainable Energy for All, Dr. Joseph Daniel Onoja, the Director General of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, welcome, and Ms. Valerie Noel Kojo Diop, the Director of Innovation and Sustainable Development for the West African Development Bank. Oh, you were missing one? Perfect. All right, thank you. Your Excellency, thank you very much. Wonderful to have you here. As the Minister of Environment and Sustainable Development for Mauritania, can you share with us what policies and initiatives have been implemented in Mauritania to specifically involve women and children in the environmental decision-making processes?
Thank you. I would like first and foremost to thank my sister, Her Excellency, the Second Lady of Ghana, who invited me to this high-level panel, Samira Bouahira. Thank you very much. I'm very glad to be part of this high-level panel because I think that for us, the women who have the chance to have the voice, the opportunity to have the voice, we have to speak up for our sisters, we have to speak up for our children, and giving us this platform is very, very, very important. I will be speaking in French. I think it's important for us also to make sure that our sister francophone, anglophone, so that to make sure that the language is not a barrier. Today we have all these technologies that help us to translate. So I want them also to join, not to be shy because of the language. Donc je remercie encore une fois Son Excellence, Madame Samira, d'avoir fait cette invitation pour au sommet. La Mauritanie, comme vous le savez, est un pays de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, un immense pays d'1 million de kilomètres carrés, avec beaucoup de défis. Des défis environnementaux. C'est un pays désertique. On a 83% de notre territoire qui est du désert. Donc, on a des problèmes de désertification. On a des problèmes également de sécheresse. Des problèmes également de l'avancée de la mer, parce que nous sommes un pays côtier, avec 700 km de côte. Donc, nous avons effectivement énormément de défis à relever, de défis environnementaux. Nous avons, comme tous les pays africains, signé des conventions, que ce soit la Convention climat, que ce soit la Convention désertification, la Convention également biodiversité. Et nous avons mis en place tout un arsenal, j'ai envie de dire, et je dis très, très souvent, je dirais, de rapports, de plans d'action, de stratégies pour les exécuter. Mais aujourd'hui, ce qui est important, c'est vraiment faire en sorte, effectivement, que ces plans d'action se traduisent concrètement, soit du concret pour les populations, que l'action, effectivement, aille vraiment au bas de la, je dirais, de la pyramide, qui est effectivement les populations elles-mêmes. Pour ce qui est, en fait, de la politique de mon ministère, nous mettons vraiment l'accent sur deux choses. La lutte contre la désertification, faire en sorte, effectivement, que nous réduisons l'avancée du désert. La Mauritanie, c'est le point d'entrée entre l'Afrique du Nord et l'Afrique subsaharienne. Donc, il est important, effectivement, que nous ayons des politiques, je dirais, efficaces pour l'avancée contre l'avancée du désert. Donc, nous avons des initiatives telles que la Grande Muraille Verte, dont l'esprit, c'est justement de faire en sorte que nous ayons un mur végétal entre l'Afrique du Nord, qui est un désertique, et l'Afrique subsaharienne. Nous avons également, donc nous sommes très, très en avant, je dirais, sur les techniques de fixation des dunes, également de reboisement. Donc là aussi, nous faisons beaucoup d'efforts dans ce sens-là. Bien sûr, également sur les politiques, je dirais, effectivement, de gestion des côtes, de renforcement des cordons dunaires. Hier, j'étais au pavillon de l'Union européenne et nous avons pu lever des fonds également privés, justement, pour réaliser tous ces travaux. Donc, je vais m'arrêter sur cette question.
Merci bien. Anita, I may turn to you now, and I will continue. In your role as the director of the Universal Electrification Facility, how specifically are you focusing on ensuring universal energy access across Africa, but especially for women and children, and engaging women in the process?
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Your Excellency, First Second Lady, thank you very much for the invitation to represent Sustainable Energy for All at this very important event. The Universal Energy Facility is a facility that provides grant subsidies to private sector companies who are in the business of building mini-grids or deploying standalone systems for productive use in sub-Saharan Africa. We understand that the private sector companies oftentimes find it very difficult to secure the necessary finance required to build projects in the rural communities because they're not so viable. They're not viable projects. And let's face it, private sector companies are driven by profit. And so the idea behind the Universal Energy Facilities grant is to bridge that viability gap as well as the affordability gap. How we ensure that women and youth are incorporated into the program, first of all, we ensure that all of the companies who actually are found eligible to benefit from the grant facility that's provided, they must have at least 30% of women, or the workforce essentially must be made up of at least 30% of women. Secondly, we ensure that the KPIs, the metrics that we measure, incorporate the number of female-headed households as well as MSMEs that are connected to these mini-grids and standalone systems for productives that are deployed. These are two key areas where we ensure that women are factored into the program. But in addition to the Universal Energy Facility at Sustainable Energy for All, we also have a Women and Youth at the Forefront program in which we train young women in the actual design and installation of these projects. So building these mini grids, deploying these standalone systems for productive use, or captive solar hybrid power plants for healthcare facilities and other public institutions as well.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. And if Dr. Onoja, if I may come to you, as we've heard a little bit more in the last panel around really intersecting these areas and cutting across energy, nature, conservation. In your role as the Director General of the Nigerian Conservation Fund, what are some of the effective ways of engaging young people in these conservation efforts, and how do you measure that impact?
All right, thank you very much. First of all, I want to really appreciate the Second Lady, Her Excellency, for your energy is contagious, I must tell you, because when we met last month at Harvard, she used the opportunity also to talk about women and children, even at that stage, and it was really, really inspiring. And that's pushed me to the question that you asked. What ways can we engage the young people and the children? One of the things that we need to do is, first of all, to what I will call decolonize our approach. Because we need to engage the young people in the context with which they understand. I'll give a typical example. Growing up and teaching children, in the African setting, when you say A is for apple, if not for now that apples are being exported and everybody knows apple, at the time we were growing up, A is for apple. What is an apple? Apple is not common to us. So we need to engage in our context where we will get the interest of these young people. So by the time we contextualize our approach, it helps us to be able to engage them and they understand whatever we are talking about in the context and in the environment with which they find themselves. And that will be able to help them to engage with us as well, because it becomes interesting to them. Whatever is not interesting, it's usually not, they don't find value in engaging with them. So once that is done, then we'll be able to measure the impact of it. And I give an example. I was discussing with a pilot, and he was telling me that when he was flying from offshore into land, and he spotted a whale, stranded whale at the beach. Being somebody who had experience with our environmental education program while growing up, he was aware of his environment and he knew that that whale shouldn't be at that place. Other pilots will have just flown past and thought that maybe that's just a log or something. But he was aware of it and he contacted the professor in the university who sent a team to be able to rescue the whale. Unfortunately, by the time they got there, the whale died, but they were able to evacuate some of those things for interaction so that they'll be able to teach young people what these things mean. So we must be able to contextualize it and bring it to life. Then we'll be able to see the impact coming on board because it will be clear and then their actions will be able to show for it. And that is why we see a lot of young people engaging with this process. Thank you.
No, thank you, Veta. And I think absolutely, thank you. Making sure that we are designing solutions with and for people that are enjoying the benefits of them. And we're speaking about inclusivity. And I'd love to come back to you, Your Excellency, around specifically how governments can ensure that climate resilient strategies are inclusive of the voices and the needs and beneficial to women and children.
Yeah, thank you for this question. I think that we are here at the COP 28. I'll switch to French. Non seulement, effectivement, pour bien sûr faire en sorte que l'objectif du 1,5, qui est notre objectif à tous, soit atteint, que 40% des gaz à effet de serre, effectivement, connaissent une diminution, pour ce qui nous a amené au 1,5. Et pour cela nous devons réaliser cette transition écologique, cette juste transition dont nous avons beaucoup parlé ces derniers temps-ci. Et j'ai envie de dire que c'est vraiment une transition écologique. La Mauritanie a réalisé, comme beaucoup de pays, effectivement, sa CDN, qu'elle a actualisée. Elle a également mis en place ses communications. Nous sommes d'ailleurs à la 5e. Et dans notre sous-région, nous sommes un pays, effectivement, qui est en avance sur ses communications. Nous avons également nos plans nationaux d'adaptation qui ont été mis en place. Mais la Mauritanie aussi est un pays gazier. Nous avons aujourd'hui découvert des réserves de gaz importantes. Nous sommes un pays pétrolier. Donc nous avons effectivement ce potentiel-là d'énergie fossile qui est là. Et donc c'est pourquoi nous parlons tous de juste transition, parce que c'est l'exploitation de cette énergie fossile qui nous permettra effectivement de faire la juste transition. Parce que nous avons également la chance d'être un pays où le potentiel en énergie renouvelable est également présent. Nous avons, la Mauritanie, c'est 4200 gigawatts de potentiel de l'énergie solaire. C'est également de l'hydrogène vert que nous sommes effectivement dans le processus effectivement de mettre en place en termes d'exploitation. Nous avons signé des MOU récemment avec des entités étrangères. La première, 30 gigawatts, donc ce qui est vraiment énorme. D'hydrogène vert. Et donc, tout cela, effectivement, fait de la Mauritanie également un pays solution quant à la transition énergétique. Mais quand on dit tout ça, nous ne sommes pas un pays industrialisé. Donc, ce qui veut dire que la transition énergétique, elle ne se fera pas effectivement avec notre industrie en tant que pays, Mauritanie en tant que pays, mais elle se fera effectivement parce que 65% des gaz à effet d'émission de serre de la Mauritanie, c'est le secteur de l'élevage. Donc, c'est en zone rurale. Et au-delà de ça, c'est également les émissions de gaz dues au charbon, à la coupe de bois, donc au charbon de bois, qui sont aujourd'hui le principal, 80% effectivement de l'énergie qu'utilisent nos familles, sont faits à partir malheureusement de charbon de bois et de coupe de bois. Donc c'est là que nous devons mettre en place je dirais effectivement des solutions innovantes pour faire cette transition énergétique dans nos pays. Et pour cela, le ministère que je dirige a mis en place effectivement plusieurs programmes. Le premier programme, effectivement, c'est d'abord la distribution de kits de gaz aux familles, mais c'est aussi rendre accessible le gaz. Aujourd'hui, vous allez dans les zones reculées de Mauritanie, vous n'avez pas effectivement le moyen d'acheter. Donc, si vous n'avez pas le moyen d'acheter du gaz, il est difficile d'y avoir accès. Nous avons également développé des programmes de biomasse, de biogaz, qui consiste effectivement à transformer les déchets, le compost, effectivement, en gaz. Mais au-delà de cela, ce que nous voulons vraiment mettre en place, c'est vraiment faire en sorte que les femmes qui utilisent effectivement ces techniques-là soient également partie prenante de tous les programmes que nous faisons. Qu'elles comprennent vraiment, parce que quand on parle de CO2, on parle d'oxygène, c'est évident pour nous qui sommes instruits, mais ce n'est pas des concepts très faciles, ce n'est pas des concepts en fait que les populations étudient au quotidien. Et c'est pourquoi nous avons mis en place effectivement un vaste programme également de communication et d'éducation environnementale, qu'on appelle les écoles vertes, donc qui a pour vocation justement d'aller dans chaque point de la Mauritanie, dans chaque école, qu'elle soit primaire, secondaire ou ou les lycées, faire en sorte d'inclure des programmes d'éducation à l'environnement, mais également des thématiques, des activités scolaires qui amènent les enfants à se poser des questions sur la transition juste, sur la coupe de l'arbre, sur le CO2, sur tous ces concepts qui nous paraissent évidents quand on a ces COP, mais qui ne sont pas accessibles à nos populations. Donc, c'est beaucoup de communication, c'est beaucoup d'éducation environnementale pour que les populations se sentent également partie prenante de nos programmes, de nos projets.
Merci beaucoup. Unfortunately, our translation capabilities and technology have not been able to keep up with these fantastic points about education and cooperation. Would you mind summarizing very briefly in English for our audience?
Okay, I will try to. Now, I was saying that all those concepts that we are raising here at the COP28 are not so obvious for our population. So it's important that we emphasize the communication around those concepts, but also that we explain them to our population. And for us, and our population are generally women and children. In Mauritania, we are 4 million. It's not a huge population, but half of it, as the minister said, are women, and 65% have less than 25 years. And above that, in the countryside, we have this exodus from the countryside to the big cities, and also with the immigration. So at the countryside level, the main population is women and children, and they are also at the forefront of the impact of climate change. So it's important that they are engaged, that they're part of our program and project, and to make sure that that's happened, it's important that to have this education, to have this communication around the problematic around the climate change. But also, I spoke about the just transition that we are hearing a lot here those days, because we are a fossil fuel producing country. We produce petroleum, and we have huge discovery of gas in our country, and we will exploit them, because it's a mean for us to gain resources and to do this just transition that we were talking about. So we'll go from fossil fuel to green energies, thanks to those investments. But it's also because also we are a country where with a high potential of green energy, solar, wind energy, but also we have signed recently 3 important MOUs on green hydrogen. The first one is 30 gigawatt. This is huge. The second one is another 33 gigawatt, and the last one is 10 gigawatt. So we are also part of the solution in terms of just transition.
No, thank you very much. And it's wonderful to see such an ambitious agenda that puts people and economic development front and center and foremost in this transition. And I think, Anita, I'll come to you for a final question around, we need that education, we need that communication, we need that engagement, but we also need to be providing opportunities and employment. So particularly from the UAF's perspective and the work that you're doing in countries, can you share a little bit about how this engagement in the process of delivering the solutions, but also the potential for productive uses and employment within the communities that you're delivering energy access?
So sorry, could you repeat the question?
If you can share a bit more about how women in particular can benefit both from the delivery of the solutions, participating in the creation of the markets of energy access solutions, but also in the productive uses that come from having energy access.
Okay, firstly, probably I can speak to the role that women can play in even achieving energy access across Africa. I think women can play all of the roles, first of all. At the top level, as it concerns engaging governments, philanthropic organizations, development partners, IFIs, they can play a huge role in getting that visibility and securing that buy-in as it concerns developing these energy access projects in Africa, as well as securing the finance that's needed to build at scale these energy access projects that will bridge the energy access gap within Africa. I think we also have a huge role to play as it concerns developing or supporting governments with ensuring that there's the enabling environment within our African countries. So supporting with the development of policies, regulatory framework that allows for private sector participation and investment in decentralized renewable energy projects as well. In addition, I think that women have a huge role to play in the design and installation of the actual technologies as well. We have leading companies like Creed Energy, Anchor, Energy City, Solar Sisters, who are not only women-led, but women-owned companies who are actually deploying these solutions, you know, to ensure that our people have access to reliable and clean power. So in addition to the fact that they can actually play a role in ensuring that African countries get access to reliable, clean, and sustainable power supply in terms of benefiting as an MSME who's actually receiving adequate power supply from these clean solutions, it can obviously help them in terms of providing the conducive working environment for them to be able to thrive and to achieve optimum capacity in whatever services or agricultural production or, you know, products that they sell. So, yeah.
No, that's
I hope I've answered your
fantastic.
question.
Thank you. Absolutely. I think it's very clear that women really are at the forefront of a just transition in Africa. Thank you for that, Anita. Dr. Noja, I'll come to you as we're speaking about conservation education specifically. We're talking about education for around energy access and bringing women involved, but I'd like to hear a little bit more about children and the future generations. How can conservation education specifically be made more accessible and appealing to children in communities?
The first thing for us to do is to be very practical. Children, they will hear a lot of things, but when they see them practically, it helps them to be able to remember. For those of us growing up as Sunday school children, most of the songs that we were taught while dancing and seeing a lot of pictures, we still remember them. So we must be intentional with our engagement with the children. It's not just about teaching them in the classes or teaching them but we take them out to the practical to go and see what's happening. Yeah, we have, for instance, the Mole National Park. It's not every children from Accra that can go to Omole. But what can we do to be able to help them see these things so that when they hear of an elephant, they will not think that an elephant is a big wall, but rather they know that it's actually an animal. We take them out to these places, they touch it, and it's very practical. So for us, so that it is not abstract, I will continue to talk about the experience we had when we went to Harvard. They had this very wonderful museum. And we're just talking to ourselves, those of us from Africa. Some of the things they asked us to draw when we were in school were very abstract. But when we saw those things live, even without seeing it twice, you go back home and you can draw it without looking at the picture because it's already there as a graphic image. So we must be intentional in teaching our children practically and taking them to exposing them to conservation areas. For instance, the Lekki Conservation Center, where my office is located in Lagos, is a green island. The whole of Lagos is a concrete jungle. So we just have that green strip of land where we engage about 4 schools every day for children to come and see practically what is happening, because you are telling a child who is growing up around concrete jungle about forest. The child wondering, what do you mean by forest? So, but when you expose them, then they'll be able to know exactly what you're talking about. And then you will see them inculcating that and growing up with it.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for the wonderful work that you're doing. And I know, Angela, we're running out of time, so I will hand back up to you and thank our wonderful panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the wonderful panel. Yes, and Her Excellency is going to present you with a SAS, so if you'll just give us a moment. Honorable Minister. Okay, please join us. Ahuna, Your Excellency, and the Minister of Transport. Thank you so much, and a warm round of applause for our moderator, Gillian, and our wonderful panel. Thank you so much. I think it's clear from the conversation we've had so far that we're already translating what's happening at COP into action, right from the policy framework to making sure we have the right language that engages women, youth, and children into the context-specific solutions. And I think this is a very good moment where we've been joined by Ms. Ahuna Ziakonwa, who is the Assistant Administrator and Head of the UNDP in Africa. And she will be giving us our call to action. She's been intimately connected with the AFRIWOCC, and together with Her Excellency, have actually sponsored almost 100 young people to come to the COP and participate. So they're represented, then they're on the table. And today she's going to give us our call to action so we leave from here with a clear agenda forward. Welcome, Your Excellency.
Thank you, Angela. Your Excellency, Madam Samira Bawumia, the Second Lady of the Republic of Ghana. I also see my dear sister and partner in crime, Madam Minata, our commissioner from the African Union Commission, ministers who are present, their sisters and brothers, greetings. So I now have the honor and privilege to kind of bring all of this together. I'm really deeply proud of the work that our Second Lady of Ghana is championing on women and children, clean cooking, and climate change, all of it put together. And I recall when the dream that we witnessed today was birthed in Accra and nurtured at the historic Africa Women and Children Conference, which focused on amplifying the voices of women and children in climate action in Nairobi at the September 2023 Africa Climate Summit week. So, Excellencies, dear friends, we commenced this week, and I was there to witness it with great momentum as we were convened by Her Excellency Madam Samia Suluhu Hassan, our President of Tanzania, the mother of African nations today, because she is our one standing female president who launched the Africa Women in Clean Cooking Support Program. Both you, Madam Bawumia, and Her Excellency the President stand tall as leaders on an issue that is foundational to whether we can get justice in its true sense when we talk about climate action. This is really what this conversation is about. Can we get real justice, meaningful, in the lives of women and children as we go from COP to COP? The narrative on the disproportionate impact on women and girls that they're facing owing to carbon-emitting cooking methods, but also other climate phenomena is now well known, and we've all been diagnosed in it. But we also have heard the inspiring remarks today that point to some of the solutions. So we know the problem, we have the solutions. What do we need to do going forward to get action? So here comes my 3 points on the call to action. The first one is I think we need to fight to elect her, appoint her, and empower her. Women of Africa have to be in the decision-making room. There are way too many who are not being elected. And so when you go back to your countries, join a movement to elect her. We need these women in our parliaments. We need these women in the politics of the nations, making decisions, standing for the issues that we're talking about here today. Because when women bring their unique feminine brand to leadership, we see action. But we just don't have enough women right now who are elected. We're starting to see women who are appointed. And you can see, I don't need to tell too many stories about this. You see the environment ministers. You just heard from one from Mauritania. You hear the spirit, the intellectual capacity, but also the heart of what needs to be done. When we have women like her at the negotiating table at the COPs, you know that something meaningful will come out of it. Yesterday, I met one of the youngest ministers in the world today from Madagascar, who is the Minister of Environment. Young, female, energetic, driven, enthusiastic, intelligent. This is what we need. And so we need to elect them, we need to appoint them, we need to insist that women are in all of those circles. The second call to action is related to the first, which is that we need to really ensure that when we are creating the space now, let's say we overcome the issue of, let's talk about clean cooking. Madam Second Lady, this is your passion. 80% of Africa today is still reliant on cooking techniques that are not cleaner, that are causing havoc in health indicators for children, for women. How do we overcome this? Again, we have the solutions. Why isn't it happening? Why is it every COP we're talking about the same numbers or even higher? Up to almost 1 billion people who are affected in this space. We need to commit here and now that by the time we come to the next COP, we should start to see and to tell the story of those numbers going down. We shouldn't be talking anymore of 80%. What will it take that all the actions, all the investments, and there are multiple investments in this area, but they are not getting to where they should be getting. What do we need to do, Madam Minata, to bring these numbers down? How can the African Union insist that we need to start measuring the reduction of this phenomena on the continent of Africa? Because Africa is the only continent right now where the population growth is not keeping pace with opportunities for clean cooking. So how do we ensure that this comes down? By measuring the impact of the investments that we're making, but also by insisting that we have more investments here. So my call to action is that for the next COP, let's not just have marginal discussions on the issue. Let's go for a unified platform space where the issue of clean cooking will be debated, will be constructed, will be decided at the next COP, a big space. Let's bring the women who are facing this issue. Many of us have met them as we travel around the world. It may not be our story, but we know the women behind the smoke. Why aren't they here? And that is my call to action. For the next COP, let's make sure that we have that space where those who are affected by this, those women, are going to be, you know, I'll tell you a small story. When I was in Ethiopia, just on the outskirts of Addis Ababa, you have what you call the wood carriers, the women wood carriers. I went up that mountain. I took a bunch of diplomats with me to witness the lives of these women. And we did a test. We took the bundle of wood from their backs, and I had every ambassador, and myself included, try to carry those bundles. And these ambassadors were mostly men. And I can tell you, none of us could go more than 2 steps with the weight of that bundle. And these are women who have been doing this for practically all their lives, carrying that wood up and down the mountain, some of them getting raped along the way. I want to see those women here. I want to see them come here to tell their story and to give the solutions that we will need to address their problems so that we're not skirting around the issues. And I think lastly is the issue of when we succeed on something like clean cooking and the transitions we're talking about, we free a lot of time for young girls and women who are currently spending 4 to 6 hours, on these chores that then limit their ability to exercise their rights in other areas, whether it's education or employment of other kinds or business. What are we going to do with the time that is released? So let's start planning for that we need to fill those spaces that will be created with productive investments for those women. So that if a woman was spending 4 hours going for firewood, and now we have solved the problem and provided a clean cooking, affordable, accessible, close by, and they no longer need those 4 hours for that chore. What are they going to do with those 4 hours? Can they study? Can we make sure there's access to education? Can they engage in employment, in business? So we have to crowd in investment for women for the times that we release. And lastly, partnerships. I think one of the things that's made it slower for us is that we're too fragmented in the efforts. We need to bring all the partners in the room, those who are providing the financing, the African Development Bank, the UNDP, the Afrexim Bank, all the entities the NGOs, the CSOs, those who are working on advocacy, those who are working on policy, the government, the public sector, all the actors have to come together around targets that are clear and that are measurable. And I think if we can insist on partnerships that set goals and measure those goals, we will be more successful than we are today. And I really want to make a call here on clean cooking. If we don't make a dent by the next COP, I would call for us to, all women who are still using unclean cooking, to call for a one-day no meal strike. No meal, no clean cooking, no food. The only ones who will have access to food will be children. Just see how the men feel when they come home and there's no food on the table. Yes, Oga? I think when that happens, we will start to see action, and we will start to see compassion as well. So, Excellencies, Madam Second Lady, our dear Commissioner, I think we have work to do. We can do it if women are in the room, at the forefront, at the center, and if women are in the leadership roles. So let's go elect her, appoint her, empower her. Thank you.
Wow, let's give another round of applause for such a rousing call to action. Elect her, empower her. Yes, appoint her. Yes. So, Your Excellency, we have to give a sash. Thank you so much. Oh, that matches. Thank you so much, and thank you for your attention and your presence. Thank you for staying with us until almost the end. And now we've come to the point where we're going to have our closing remarks, and we have a distinguished Executive Director of EPA here with us, and I'm going to invite him to close us off. I know you're passionate about this, so you'll close us off well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No meal for one day will not be a joke. So, men, let's start acting. And indeed, this is not a caution, it's a warning. Let me take it. Mom, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, and our gracious host, Her Excellency Samira Baumia, the Second Lady of Ghana. Her Excellency, your exploits reminds me of 1995, Beijing Conference, World Women Conference, where our First Lady in the Fourth Republic of Ghana, Nana Kunadu Ajeman, represented Ghana and Africa. You so remind me of that era. Thank you very much for your good work. As we conclude this high-level dialogue at the Africa Women and Children Conference at COP28, I am filled with a sense of profound gratitude and optimism. Today, we have not only shared insights, but also amplified the crucial voices of women and children in the fight against climate change. Our discussions have shed light on the unique challenges and perspectives that women and children face regarding climate change. It is clear that their involvement and leadership are not just beneficial, but essential for effective climate action. We have heard inspiring stories of resilience, innovation, and initiatives that are community-led solutions. These narratives are a testament to the strength and potential that lies within our women and children. They are not just beneficiaries of climate action. They are powerful agents of change. As we move forward, let's carry the momentum from today's dialogue. Let's commit to inclusive policies, programs, and initiatives that empower women and children. Our approach should not only address their vulnerabilities, but also harness their unique strengths and potentials. The government of Ghana, headed by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, the president, under the auspices of the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology, and Innovation, reaffirms its commitment to integrating gender and youth perspectives in our climate policies and actions, as is emphasized in our nationally determined contributions. We believe that by doing so, we can build a more sustainable, equitable, and resilient future for Ghana and the world. In closing, I extend my sincere thanks to all the participants, organizers, and especially to you, Her Excellency Samira Bawumia, for chairing this vital dialogue. The path ahead is challenging, but together, with our combined efforts, resilience, and innovative spirit, we can and will make a significant impact. It is possible. We can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for closing us off on such a positive note and powerful note. And now we have a challenge about the next COP. We're going to accelerate our action, but we're also alleviating our ambition. So for the next COP, men, be ready. Otherwise, there'll be no meal. And also, we want to see change that we'll be able to celebrate at the next COP. In closing, I know you're all ready to go, but it would be nice to have a personal word from Her Excellency to set us off. Please come. Thank you.
Thank you all so much. My dear sister, truly inspiring. I love listening to you. I learned a lot. For all of you who came all the way to join us today, dear Commissioner, my sisters, I mean, you show us the power of partnerships and how one meeting can birth something as incredible and as amazing. So I thank you all. Let's go forth and create the Africa we all want. And it takes all of us to make it happen. And I like what my sister said, no clean cooking, no cooking. Thank you all so much.
With that, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, we've come to the end of our program. Thank you so much for being here with us. And we'll just take a few pictures. But thank you so much for your attention and being with us.